A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I got to sit down with our first guest on the show from Canberra. Brad and his team of carpenters from Trend Building Solutions are working on some of Canberra's best residential construction projects. I was particularly interested in hearing an insight into how the construction industry operates in Canberra, as you don't often hear a lot about the industry in Canberra. They just seem to go about their business. As you'll hear on a chat, Brad is a true family man, and he reflects on the hard-working role model of his dad and the influence that had on his construction business growing up in a hard-working household. This was a really insightful chat, so let's get into it. Brad from Trend Building Solutions in Canberra, welcome to Build Hatch.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Like all, I guess, we always like to go back to the very beginning and hear about how you got into the building and construction industry. So did you always grow up here in Canberra?
Yeah, mate. Born and bred in Canberra, or just on the outskirts. There's another little town called Queanbeyan that I grew up in. So just basically grew up with my dad and my brother. Bit of a working class sort of family. My dad ran a small business and sort of I think he had a lawn mowing franchise back in the day, sort of thing. So
that would have been like hard work, classic sort of hard work, that sort of industry.
Pretty much, yeah. Like that's what he was about. And my brother and I helped, like after school, weekends, school holidays. That's kind of what we did. We just helped him out as he was a single dad and he needed the help, sort of thing. So work was kind of just part of life.
Were you sort of always wanting to get in the construction industry from school?
Mate, honestly, no. At school, I thought I wanted to be a panel beater. I went and did a week sort of work experience at school and hated every minute of it. So I left
hard
school.
Work, those guys. They're hard workers.
It is, yeah. And I didn't like the idea of being stuck in a factory every day. So when I left school, I went and worked for my dad for sort of 12 months and just killed time with that, just doing landscaping. And he grew his business from like a mowing franchising into landscaping and concreting and things like that. So I just helped him out for the year. And then I actually started brickies labouring for a little while through a mate of dad's. And then got towards it, like that was sort of just a few months up until Christmas. Helped him out. Then after that, I decided I didn't really enjoy that either. And I picked up an apprenticeship doing cabinet making. So I started basically there. That's how I got into construction and just sort of flew from there and did my 4-year apprenticeship cabinet making and things like that. And then got a bit tired of, again, being stuck in a factory. And then I moved over to a carpentry crew and we did like disabled work, so like bathroom renos for the elderly and stuff like that. Bathroom renovations, wheelchair ramps and access, stuff like that. That sort of kept me going for quite a while and it just sort of snowballed from there. And then I went out and worked for a few other guys that I knew were doing carpentry, like proper carpentry, like houses and stuff like that. And I've just grown from there and I did that for probably a couple of years and then I decided to have a go out on my own, start my own business. And I was only young. I was only probably 23 when I started that and I got hold of doing real estate maintenance. That was sort of my, at the time, bread and butter. I knew a few people that own real estate agencies in Queanbeyan and I just sort of kept busy doing that. And it just was a natural progression. We just sort of grew out of that and then knowing mates in the construction industry here, I just gradually grew into full-time carpentry work, building houses, and that's how I got started.
Yeah, look, that's the best part about the building industry, I think. There's just so many swings and roundabouts and so many different pathways to becoming a builder. And the common theme of this podcast is all the guests, like it always involves hard work and a work ethic and a team at the end of the day.
That's right, yeah. I mean, like I said earlier, growing up was hard work. That's what we knew of. That's all I knew with my family. My dad, we just worked all the time. So that was always instilled in me to work no matter what. And even till I was up of the age of, in my 30s, my dad, I'd call him or he'd call me one day or every now and then and I'd say I was off crook and he'd be like, mate, you have to go to work. You've got to get up and work. And you just work all the time. That was life. We didn't know anything different. So it has certainly been a hard slog. Like we've been in a business since I was about 22 and I'm 37 now. So in one way or another, we've ran the business for that long. So not to where it is now, but it's taken a lot of effort to get it to where it is now. But now we run five other guys plus myself, which is enough for us at the moment. Like you could run 20 guys here in Canberra at the moment. It still wouldn't be enough. There's that much work at the moment. You just got to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm happy with what I'm taking on, sort of thing.
Tell me about the construction industry in Canberra. What's it like?
Mate, at the moment, it is very, very busy. If you're not busy here in Canberra at the moment, you're doing something wrong. Even if you are doing something wrong, the blokes that are still busy. Just the demand for it at the moment is crazy, and I think a lot of it has to do with the public service here in Canberra that props up the market all the time. There's always a steady flow of money around, so people are always buying and building and things like that. So townhouse developments, like multi-townhouse developments, is big here, like unit blocks of 40, 50, 60, 70 sort of townhouses in each block is quite common. That's how I got started basically in this industry, doing that. We've since scaled back a little bit to size, so they're not as big a sites. But yeah, like I said, there's just a lot of work in Canberra at the moment.
Yeah, look, I predicted this about 6 months ago, I reckon. This has only been proven time and time. And I know for a fact that the construction industry in Canberra for the next couple of years, if not 5 years, will just be one of the fastest growing, busiest times of your lives in construction. And I'll tell you why. It's so obvious and easy, is defence. You only have to look at the amount of defence jobs, the amount of money that we're having to, as a country, invest into, our nation's capital in Canberra, in light of what's gone on over in Ukraine, what's going on, the tension with China and Taiwan and all around the world now. This will be it going forward. That the government will pump billions and trillions of dollars into the economy, and it's all going to be happening in Canberra there, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, we've always had a false economy in Canberra. We've never really felt too much of a downturn in work, even through COVIDs and all that sort of stuff. It just never really bothered us here that much. And I put that down to the public service defence thing. It's just they spend money all the time. And whether that be government buildings getting built, it depends on what level of construction you're into, but it all filters down the line. So if they're building big buildings for that department, well, those people need places to live and so on and so forth. So it seems to keep us all very busy.
So what's it like getting trades here in Canberra at the moment? Like, everyone's busy. So is that a bit of a challenge for you at the moment?
Yeah, mate, it's the same for everyone. I mean, at the moment in our business, we predominantly do carpentry work, just contract carpentry work. So a builder will get in contact with us to come and do his carpentry work. So we are licensed builders. I've recently just obtained all my licenses in New South Wales and ACT. So we're not feeling that at the moment, but in terms of what I hear through my builders that I work for at the moment, it's the same thing. It's hard to get trades to come back. They try to look after the ones they've got because you just don't know if you can get someone else.
It's one of the places, I mean, particularly on the east coast of Australia, Canberra seems to sort of just creep through under the radar a little bit. Like, you don't often hear too much. So it's always good to get a bit of an insight. And it's interesting that you say that there's obviously a lot of townhouse development, a lot of work for policy and public servants. And so there's definitely a lot of work around.
Yeah, look, as I said, at the moment they're popping up everywhere. There's a lot of new suburbs that have just come up in Canberra recently that are still going quite well. But even the older suburbs now are getting developed. Developers are buying 2 and 3 blocks in a street, joining them together and putting 7 or 8 townhouses on it or something like that.
How have you been impacted by materials? Like, how has that impacted you in Canberra?
Yeah, look, it's caused us issues the same as everyone else. Steel frames are quite common now, which as carpenters, it's kind of like taboo. Like, you hate it. It takes a lot of convincing to get the boys to sort of try and get into it and be involved in it. They just like the idea of playing with timber, which I can't blame them. It's speak to any carpenter that does steel frames, they say it's just hard. You can't manipulate them. You can't just cut it and join it and go on. So the shortage of materials, obviously, that's because of the timber, so that's gone into that. I feel like it is coming back a little bit, and we do have the odd issue where we get to the end of projects where we're waiting on items to turn up, like door handles and stuff like that, to fit units off, but there's just delays in getting them here. And I think a lot of the builders now are used to it and organising a lot earlier, so they'll have a lot of gear sort of stockpiled and just try and keep their projects moving accordingly.
Particularly in the southern states, a lot of builders or chippies, they try and plan their work so that they're not out framing in the middle of winter. So, and obviously Canberra is a very cool place in winter. What sort of planning with that goes on with you, or it doesn't really matter? Like, how does that affect you, the weather?
Mate, not really. Like here, Canberra just keeps going. Like as chippies, I guess the weather does have it play a little impact, like with the frost. Sometimes it's hard to be up doing trusses and stuff when it's frosty, but pretty much rain, hail, or shine, like it just keeps going. It doesn't matter. Time of year, builders don't care if they're throwing frames up in winter or summer or whatever. We've had some pretty miserable days, but I've never actually had it snow on us while we worked. You can see it in the surrounds, like the mountains that surround Canberra. You can see it on the tops of the mountains when you're driving to work, and you can see it's only sort of one hill back from the town, like all of Canberra. You know it's going to be a cold day. But yeah, it's not uncommon to have -5s, 6s sort of thing. Very cool and very hot. We get variance from -5 to 45 sometimes.
Yeah,
It makes
that's
it hard
right.
to work. It tests the boys out a bit, especially some of the younger ones, because they just can't handle it. They're just not used to working in those sort of conditions.
Now, is there anything that's unique in Canberra's construction industry? Like, is there anything that you find that's different from what you see or hear about other places?
Um, Probably a lot of run of the mill type developments. Nothing quite out of the box sort of thing. Like I said, in our townhouse developments that we work on, predominantly they're basic, straight up rectangle sort of thing. They're just one after another. They're nothing fancy. You see a lot of stuff online of folks building really interesting stuff. Not saying that doesn't happen in Canberra, but I guess we're not a part of that. We just stick in our lane and do the traditional sort of stuff that's going on. I wouldn't say that there was too much out of the box sort of in Canberra. I'd say it was fairly standard construction here. Obviously, you get the high end stuff in certain suburbs, but
Do you run two different crews, or like how do you sort of run your business?
not really. We try to run our business so we can do start to finish, basically. Like we prefer to do everything from the very start, from your very first frame to your final door handle at the very end. Just makes it so much easier for you. You know what's what. You know if you've missed something at frame stage, you've got to pick it up at the pre-sheet stage, so you know that it's there. That's generally how we try to run it, and I try to teach all my boys to be able to do the lot. I don't like to have two separate crews in that. It just seems to be hard work for me to organise then.
Basically, ideally, have all the guys on the one site.
At the moment, yeah, because we only run a sort of crew of 6, we try and keep it fairly tight knit. When you've got it sort of 4 or 5 townhouses on one block, you can easily sort of disperse the guys around there and keep them busy. Sometimes we will split, just depends on how the weeks run. Some jobs will overlap, so we've got to split the crew into sort of 3 and 3, or 2 go to one job and the rest go to another job.
And do you contract that for, like, say, fixed price for packages for builders?
Not a lot. So Canberra's really based on rates at the moment. So you'll either issue a set of rates to the builder that you generally work from, or they'll have a set of rates that they have that they think is what's fair and reasonable, and then you might argue, well, not argue, but you might chop and change a few dollars here or there over a few different things and come to a happy medium and go from there.
And so do you sort of help work that out and say, okay, well, frame's going to be X and fit off is this, and we've allowed 10 days for that, but if it goes over, it's over, or like it varies, does it?
Yeah, so we'll go through and, like I said, we'll negotiate a price on if I think their rate of frames might be such and such A, and I say it might be B. We've got to come up a couple of dollars a metre to get that to work. General deadlines, we don't, like with the guys that we work for, they don't run that too much. They'll say the frames are ready on this date. We get there and make a start. And obviously, you got to work to time frames, and you get pushed as you go, sort of thing. But it's not generally a contracted out thing. We'll say we'll give you 10 days to get the frames up, no matter what, sort of thing. It's probably a little bit more relaxed, I guess, maybe down here than some other parts. I mean, I don't know because I've never worked anywhere else but here, so I don't know how it goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a supply and demand thing, and it's also a demographic. Like, it does vary from city to city and state to state, and of course, when there's huge demand, well, that evidently creates I guess a bit of a reluctance to fix price and to work transparently. But I mean, one of the things I'm interested in is if for a chippy who's listening to this and thinking, well, I'd love to be able to have a square meter rate, because I often get asked all the time, like, how do I convert what we do into a square meter rate on this or that? I mean, if you're a tiler or painter, it can be a lot easier, if you like, sometimes to be able to work that out. But if you're working off like a framing square meter rate, or a linear meter rate, how do you work that out as a chippy?
Yeah, look, so like down here, everything gets based off your footprint, basically, of your house. If it's a 200 square metre footprint, that's how most things get worked out. You get your frames on that price, you get your pre-sheet on that price, and you get your fix out and your fit off done at those square metres, and then obviously the dollar figure alters in between. You're always going to get variations in it. Like if something's like a bit different, we've got to change it. Some builders will ask you to price that out. Other guys will just be happy for you to say, we'll just do it on an hourly rate and just get it done.
But if they're talking about like a linear meter rate or a square meter rate, is that sort of like benchmarked across the local industry, or do they say, oh, okay, well, we've got a 200 square meter home. It takes 3 guys at $60 an hour a whole day to erect, I don't know, 30 linear meters of framing at 2.7 meters tall or something like that, and then convert that to a rate?
To be honest, I don't know. Like I said, because we've just sort of gradually grew into this market, I've gotten rates off mates that I know, and it's just sort of gone that way.
Yeah, it's just an industry benchmark, really.
Yeah, and then you'll talk to a few other guys that you know in the industry, and they say, well, they've gone up a couple of dollars here. So you jump on your rate sheet and you change it, and then you send it out to your builders and say, well, this is what it is now because everything's going up, inflation's done, and so on and so forth. So it kind of just seems to go like that. And then as a whole, I guess the town sort of runs on around about similar prices. You'll get guys that are doing a little bit cheaper. You'll get guys that are getting a little bit more, but their builders are happy to pay for it. Some builders won't, sort of thing. So,
well, it's not as scientific as what people make it out to be, is it? It's just someone.
Not really. I don't know where the said figures come from originally. Obviously, someone has thought it up years and years ago, and it just kind of keeps evolving every year. Every year, I try and put mine up every financial year, sort of thing, as everything materials go up and stuff like that. So,
are you supplying and installing?
We don't do a lot of supply and install at the moment. Always just been a little bit hesitant of it, I guess, just in case something goes pear-shaped and you might not get paid and you've got a lot of money outlaid and things like that. So some builders are into it. They're happy for you to do it, and others are not because they get their markup on it. So they're not really keen on you supplying it and putting 25%, 30% on your materials, because if they can order it, they'll just do it themselves.
Yeah, that's right. What's sort of an emerging trend, if you like, that's going on in Canberra in construction? Like, is there anything that's unique or different that's standing out and you think, oh, this is starting to become popular or creep in a bit more?
A lot of metal cladding is becoming very popular in Canberra at the moment. I see that going up on a lot of buildings. Pretty much most buildings are having somewhat of colour bond cladding everywhere. Obviously, it's fairly on trend at the moment. with the matte finishes that you can get with it. So that's probably a big one. Obviously, there's different materials coming out all the time. So
Do you
people,
do any standing seam cladding?
not a lot. We did some on my own house. I finished. We just built a house for myself about 12 months ago. We put some end seam, not standing seam, but end seam, which is kind of a similar product, I guess. We did a little bit of that on the front facade, but I don't do a lot of it.
Yeah, it's definitely a different trade. You know, it's another level, I think, in the manual handling and the installation.
Just the
Um,
detail, I think, that can go into like a lot of flashing work and stuff like that. Obviously, A, to make it watertight, and B, to make it look nice as well. So it just takes a lot of effort, I think, and you either know it or you don't, sort of thing.
what about the local network or building industry in Canberra here? Like, what's it like in terms of like, is most of your work through word of mouth referral, or like how do you get most of your work?
Yeah, most of my work has come that way. I'd say pretty much all of it. I've never really advertised to get work from builders. When I first got started, I came in under a good mate of mine, helping him out. He was running a fairly large crew and stuff like that, so we just sort of helped him out. And then he kind of went in a different direction, and he just handed it over to me, sort of thing. He said, "Well, here's my contacts, and go from there." So it's kind of just evolved from there. And I guess being born here, worked here my whole life, you get to know a lot of people, and people talk to other people and say, "Oh, this guy did a good job." So if you're looking for a crew of chippies, give him a call, and it sort of just snowballs from there.
What's on the cards for the future of yourself and Trend Building Solutions moving forward?
Moving forward, I would like to get into building some stuff for myself. Obviously, we've just got our licenses to be licensed builders now, so that would be.
Was that a hard process?
It's taken a lot of years of experience. I guess you got to get a lot of hours under your belt to be able to be deemed competent in it, which has to be signed off from other licensed builders. So that's taken a long time to build up that sort of thing. So that was always something that's been on my radar for a lot of years. I just have had it sitting there, and obviously, like a lot of people running business, get busy and don't do much with it. Then I had kids and stuff like that, so it just sort of sat idle by for a while. And then during COVID, we sort of looked into it. Like I was sitting at home, not doing a great deal, so it sort of looked at start to get the process really going and apply through the governments to get my license, and it sort of happened fairly quickly from there. So, being that we're on the border of New South Wales and ACT, that you get one in one state and then you just apply across the border and they give it to you for just like RPL sort of thing.
Did you go
Uh,
through like a local service provider to get your builder's license or like an agency?
yeah, so I did my Cert 4 quite some time ago through Capital Training Institute. So I got my Cert 4 through them, and then obviously, like I said, I had to gain all the levels of experience building and managing jobs and things like that. So that took a fair while to get to where I needed to get to.
What do you like to do outside of work when you're not busy, Brad, running Trend Building Solutions here in
When,
Canberra?
when I'm not doing that, I started coaching rugby league this year. So I started coaching my son's under seven side. I played rugby league as a young fella from the age of 6 right through till I was about 19. Um, and sort of stepped right away from it from there, and never really had much to do with it. And then my son started last year when he was 6 playing, so I sort of got roped into a little bit of helping then. And there was a spot open up for a side this year, and I put my hand up to coach, and I've honestly love it. I would never, don't think I would ever not do it anymore. It's just something that's just a good thing away from work. I don't have to think about work and stuff like that. So that's a really big thing, especially during winter. Season's about to come to an end next week, this week, sorry. And then other than that, I ride dirt bikes. So I like to do that and get out when I can. But same thing, when you run a business, there's not a lot of free time for that. So
That's right. Everyone's busy, particularly in construction. So one foot in front of the other all the time.
yeah, that's it. And like I said, I got 2 little kids, so they're both sort of getting to the age where they're into sport and stuff now. So that keeps us pretty busy as well. So
What's it like looking back now? You know, the young Brad and his family and his old man running a a lawn mowing business, and you sort of look back now, you're coaching your own young guy, and yeah, what's it like reflecting on those
Yeah,
years?
it's very strange because, like I said, going back to the football thing, it's like a full circle. Like all the dads that I see there now are all guys that I played footy with, and it's like turning back in time sort of thing. And a lot of the older guys that were there are still there now, so it's really nice. And just, I guess, looking back on it, at the time, I never really thought I was learning much from my dad. Like, but he probably taught me probably the most important thing in the world is the work ethic, and you don't get anything for free in life. You got to work hard for it to get it. So um, that's probably, yeah, a really good thing for me to reflect on quite regularly.
Yeah, look, it's so true, and I think a lot of people undervalue hard work, and you some days you're thinking, why am I doing this? Or I'm just grinding this out. Where am I going? Like, it doesn't feel like I'm getting anywhere. And then you just get a couple of days. You might only get 2 days a fortnight, I reckon, and you just think today was a good day, and
Yeah, that's
I'm
it. Look,
I'm moving in the right direction, and it's worth it.
yeah, business is a hard thing to be in. Like, I believe that you're either cut out to do it or you're not, sort of thing. It's a big mental load to take, and you need to be able to try and shut off from it when you hit the front door of your house. But it's not easy. Yeah, it does take its toll on your family and stuff like that.
Yeah, look, it's all worth it though, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, you're employing people, you're putting food on their table as well as your own family's table. So it's it's very rewarding and satisfying when you look at it like that, not necessarily in a financial capacity all the time.
Yeah, that's right. And it's a bit like the football thing, watching your staff grow as well. Like, it's watching them learn and evolve into things, and then even like over the years, I've had guys do their apprenticeship through me, and then they go off and do their own thing. And it takes satisfaction in that too, because you sort of think, well, I've taught him most of what he knows, and things like that. So that's very rewarding too.
Now, here's an interesting question for you. How do you handle when you have a really good worker or an employee that works for you, and they say, "Brad, thank you. I'm grateful for everything that you've done, but I now want to go out and be like you, but work for myself." How do you manage that?
It's never easy because you invest a lot of time into staff, and time is money and things like that. No one stays with you forever. Like, no one's going to be there and retire with you. That's just the nature of the beast. People come and go. But I'm a big believer in, they do the right thing by me, I do the right thing by them. If they just want to go out and have a go by themselves and there's been no issues, then that's not a problem by me. Like, I think good luck to you and go. And if I can help you out in any way, that I will. Like, if you're starting out a business and you want a bit of work, or you want to do some hourly work or whatever, then I'll be more than happy to help them out, sort of thing. Because I know what it was like when I first started. It was hard. So if I can help any of them, I would.
Is there someone you talk to or turn to, like if you are having sort of a tough time with work in terms of running your
Yeah,
business or anything like that?
a little bit. I went through a bit of a period there, sort of early in the year, that was pretty tough. I have a mate of mine that had ran something very similar. He was probably the only one I could sort of talk to a little bit. The rest of my mates and stuff like that don't run their own businesses at all. So it's like I said, if you don't run a business, you don't generally understand the pressure that can come with it. And I do find myself sometimes to be a little bit lonely because there's not a lot of my mates that are doing what I'm doing, sort of thing. So it can be quite easily to be just sort of singled out, and you just sort of do your thing, and you just work all the time because that's what you know. I did go through some bit of a business coaching thing earlier, the sort of late last year, which helped out with a lot of ideas and just some processes to put into the business and stuff like that, and helped me with some of the staff that I had, and sort of just filter through a bit of the shit, basically. The biggest thing
Um,
that I probably struggled with over the years was the admin side of things. As like a hands-on person, like, you're not generally built to sit in front of a computer all day. It's very foreign to you, sort of thing. You like to build things with your hands and try to manage cash flows and budgets and all that sort of stuff. You're just not taught these things when you're younger, and it's something I wish I had someone say, hey, mate, you should do a proper budget, like with your business every week or every month or whatever it needs to be. It's probably that's probably my biggest thing that I took out of some coaching and stuff that's helped our business out massively.
All right, Brad. Well, it's been really nice to sit down and get to talk to you and hear about the construction industry here in Canberra. So for the people listening to this who want to get into contact with you and your team, what's the best way to go about it?
Mate, you can jump on, just look us up online. Like there's our website there, or any social media, Instagram, flick us a message through there. And like I said, if I can help anywhere or if anyone's got a question or something, then I'm more than happy to help out and get people through some difficult times or whatever that be.
Well said, and love what you're doing, and kudos to you doing some great things in Canberra, and what a great place to be and work over the next 5 years and beyond. So, Brad from Trend Building Solutions here in Canberra, thanks for coming on to Build Hatch.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with Brad from Trend Building Solutions in Canberra. Brad and his team are working on some really cool projects, so I certainly encourage you to check out their socials for an insight into their wonderful work. As usual, if you know a hard worker having a go in the construction space or a building-related business, person or product where you love what they are doing or selling, then please do get into contact with us and we'll be more than happy to tell their story and get behind their goods or services on the Build Hatch marketplace. Our team are busy rolling out independent sellers on buildhatch.com as we speak, so stay tuned for more and more products and services as they are onboarded. As usual, please check out our Instagram page and other socials where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and some of the features of the work that we talk about. Have a great week, and you'll hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.